Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jessica Smith and I help you simplify home education so you can work wonders in your home. Well, I thought that at the beginning of the school year, it would be a great time to talk about what I'm going to be doing differently this year than what I did last year. And I have a whole video, kind of a review of last year, 2023 to 2024 school year, and what we did, what I liked, what I didn't like, what I was going to change this year. So based on that, this is the changes that we're going to make. And First, I'm going to talk about our plan, our schedule, my kids' ages, what grades they're going to be in. And then at the end, I'm going to share the curriculum, books, and resources that I'm going to use for this year. I have done most of our school kind of family style, mainly because my kids have either been in the same form, which is grades 1 through 3 for Form 1, or they've been in the early years, so preschool age. And this is the first year that I'm going to have kids in multiple forms. So I have 2 boys in Form 2, which is grades 4 through 6. I have a fourth grader and a 6th grader, and then I have a 1st grader. And this is the first year that I've said, you know what, the older boys are going to need to be mostly independent learners. We really can't do a lot of family style learning. And I explained that in my video about our review of last year, where I would read aloud a book, say history, to all the kids, and then they would take turns narrating. That didn't work for my middle son. He was 7 at the time, 8. He was 8 years old at the time. And so it just didn't work well for him. He's more of a visual learner. He's very distracted by noises in the background. So we had to change things up, and it's worked really well for me to give the boys a list of the things they're supposed to do that day, and then they complete those and they come narrate to me. There's a few subjects they need my help for, like dictation, where I read a passage and then they write it down, as well as some hands-on math with my 8-year-old. Who's now 9-year-old. So I feel like there's some subjects that need my help, but most of the time they can do it on their own. So in the past, I had a brown notebook, and there's a video all about the notebooks that I use. So I had a brown notebook, and I would write down every single thing they need to do for the next day. I'd have to do that every night. Now, I was doing that, and it worked well. It's just some days I forgot. Some days it was midnight and I just finished the dishes, finished cleaning, and I realized I need to go and look through and see what needs to be done for tomorrow, and I don't. So I was just planning on doing that again this year, but just being more dedicated, setting an alarm on my phone for 8 or 9 o'clock to get those assignments written down in every one of the boys' notebooks. But then on Patreon, one of the members mentioned that she's using SYLLABIRD this year for her homeschool planning. And I was intrigued, so I went and looked it up, and now I am a convert and I am obsessed with it. I love it. It's been making my life so much easier. So in a nutshell, SYLLABIRD is a digital way to plan your homeschool and make a schedule and plan your curriculum too. Now, if you're a member of the Alviary, the Charlotte Mason Institute curriculum, you may already be familiar with this. So the Alviary has put all of their lesson plans and their schedules on SYLLABIRD, and so you can just pay an extra fee and have that there. So you may have already heard about it. If not, this is how it works. You have students, you can enroll a student, and then you can make courses. So chemistry, you could do Civil War, could be a course, and then you can add those courses to a subject. It's just a drop-down menu, like which subject does this course go under? And then you can plan assignments within those courses, and you can do it based on weeks. You could do it for the whole year, and then you can even do repeating assignments. I'll make a whole video about SYLLABIRD if you're all interested. I have made some screenshots of me doing a lot of planning and how I've used SYLLABIRD to plan my custom Charlotte Mason curriculum for my family. Another thing that we're doing this year that I've done in years past is using some of these restaurant menus. And these are, I think they're 8. They're 8-page ones. And I will print out the hymn, the lyrics for our folk songs, the poems and scriptures that we're using for recitation, and I will put those in a restaurant menu along with the child's schedule, which, since we're doing SYLLABIRD, it's kind of irrelevant now, but put the schedule or whatever else I want to put in these menus, and we use those for family morning time. The nice thing with the menus is that they're plastic, and so we can have them at the table when we use them for breakfast and morning time, and they're not going to get super gross and dirty, and they're easily wiped off if they do get gross. So I like to use those restaurant menus for our family morning time and all of the things that are required with that. I mentioned that in our daily rhythm last year we're doing brain balance exercises, which were pretty much primitive reflex exercises and just physical exercise that help strengthen that mind-body connection. Also give the kids' brain a break, or a different type of exercise rather than just reading and writing and doing math, to kind of give them a refresher before they move on to different subjects. I have one son in particular that has some difficulty with attention. He was diagnosed with ADHD, and there's a lot of other things that he struggles with, especially executive function. So when Bright Kids Can't Learn, this is for kids with learning disabilities, and this can be all the way up to high school. This is based on a lot of brain research that has been done. A lot of things that you wouldn't guess are involved in learning. And I think I just need to make a whole video on these two books, which I think I will. If you're interested in that, please leave a comment below. Let me know if you want to learn more, and specifically what you'd like me to talk about with these two books. So there's brain exercises in this book, and then there's lots of brain and body exercises in this one. So this one is written by a physical therapist. This is for schools to implement in their schedule to make a motor lab. So I made a motor lab for our home, and I am planning on doing a whole video more in depth on these two books, the exercises that they have, and then showing you what our home motor lab in our basement looks like and how we fit that into our homeschool schedule. So we spend about 20 to 30 minutes in the middle of our morning lessons doing the motor lab. I feel like it has helped so far in the last couple of weeks that we've been doing it. Just the boys it's given them a mental break, and it's really eye-opening to see which exercises are difficult for each boy and realize that these are connected with some of the learning difficulties that they have. So some other curriculum that I will be adding this year for writing is the book Know and Tell. This is the second year that my oldest has been doing written narration. Now, in the past, he has just written a few sentences down, and I haven't really worried about doing any technique or any structured writing, just letting him write his narration unhindered. This is the first year that I thought, okay, he's in 6th grade. We are going to start doing something a little bit more intentional. And so I read the book Know and Tell. I also read the book The Writing Revolution. And in Patreon, I'm going to have a mini podcast where I talk about grammar and teaching it in the context of writing, and a lot of exercises from the book The Writing Revolution, as well as other resources that I've pulled together and used. And then Know and Tell, I'm going to talk more about that and kind of summarize the main points from that and how I am applying that with my kiddo this year. And I'm really excited to start. There's some really good writing exercises from both books, and Karen Glass does a great job of breaking it down into manageable steps for each year, as well as just each stage, I would say, more so than year. But once your child reaches this stage, then add on this, then add this, all the way to high school. Two books that I highly recommend for writing. Now, as far as other curriculum and books, this is where the fun part comes in, because I have a lot of books that we're going to be using this year, especially since I have 3 different kids and we're adding a lot more subjects. So for nature study, for my Form 1 son, we are moving on to the books by Edith Patch. There's Holiday Pond, Holiday Forest, Holiday Meadow. I really like these for a biome. We've used Rebecca Johnson's A Walk in the Forest or A Walk on the Prairie, and I really like those books as well. But these ones, as I was reading through them, they're just a little more in depth, and they add a lot more details and just goes more into depth about the biome than the Rebecca Johnson books. So we've started reading these and we really like them. So I'm using those for my Form 1 son. For my Form 2 boys, we are moving on to this for nature lore. This is the spring of the year, but the one we'll be using is summer of the year, and then move on to fall of the year. And I really like these books, and my boys really like them too. What I think is really fun about these books and really speaks to my boys is that this guy, the author, Dallas Lore Sharp, is sharing his experiences in nature throughout the seasons. And a lot of them are from his childhood as a boy, an adventurous, rambunctious, curious, and kind of risk-taking boy that my boys can really identify with. So that's a good book that my older boys have enjoyed so far. For morning time, this is a resource where I'm really is pulling in a lot of the folk songs and the recitation pieces, as well as some of the primary sources that are illustrated in this. And she also, Cindy Rollins also has a lot of good suggestions for creating a good morning time. Now, if you're not familiar with morning time, or what I like to call our family gather, this is about an hour of time that we do the subjects that we can combine together as a family. So this would be scripture study, singing a hymn, singing a folk song, and doing recitation. My boys have not done great on picking poems and recitation pieces to work on their own. So we do this as a family, and this is a good resource for that. Now for literature, I've always used the Rainbow Fairy book by Andrew Lang. And that one just has the best from his books, like the Violet Fairy book, the Red Fairy book. I love the Rainbow Fairy book. But I found the Golden Key by George MacDonald, and it's beautiful. It has already some beautiful stories in it that we've read, but I love the illustrations and just the book. I am a sucker for beautiful covers, beautiful illustrations, and beautiful stories. And so we're going to read the Golden Key for my first grader this year. For history, we're studying the Civil War. Now, this is something that we're going to be doing differently for history that I have struggled with so much, because I want to make everything neat and tidy, and I want it very organized. And I was doing history the way that Charlotte Mason recommended, or at least the way she did it in her schools. So I tried that for a couple years when my oldest started in Form 2, and it just hasn't been working because we only get partway through the spine, or the broad look at that historical time period. And then we don't get through the whole thing. We have to move on, and I just didn't like that. So we were just doing a year. I was just going to plan on doing 1 year. And again, like we weren't quite finished with that time period at the end of the year. And then it just hit me. And honestly, I had prayed about it. It's like, can you, Heavenly Father, please help me figure out a good way to study history? And I know it seems so trivial, but it was really bugging me. And so the thought came to me, well, just end where you end at that year and pick up again when you begin the next year. You don't have to try to fit your historical time period you're studying into one school year. Just it's a lifelong pursuit, learning. And so it may bleed into the next year, and when you finish that time period, it may be in the middle of the next year. Pick up where you left off and keep going. And I thought, yeah, that makes more sense. And then I don't have to stress about trying to fit a certain amount of pages into this term so we can finish it. So that's something that we're doing differently, is we're just reading a spine, we're reading biographies, we're reading some historical fiction, and when we're finished with that time period, then we'll move on to the next time period and the next spine, wherever we were at, whether it's in the middle of a term or a year, or maybe it happens to be at the end of a year. So we're just trying that for this year and seeing how it goes. For the Civil War, we are using Two Miserable Presidents by Steve Sheinkin. I've loved all of his other American history spines, and this is no exception. This is a good book. I love all of his books, and I'm excited to use this for our Civil War history spine. And then we are continuing with the Living Science Study Guides by Nicole Williams of Sabbath Mood Homeschool. This is I just love her guides. And she incorporates nature study too, so I don't have to try to mix that in there and figure out how they're all going to fit together. Then we are still using the elementary arithmetic from Simply Charlotte Mason. And she doesn't have grade 6 yet, so my 6th grader is using CTC math again this year. He enjoyed it, and I figured we'll just keep doing that. I don't want to keep switching math curriculum on him, so he's going to be doing that. However, we're using the practical geometry one day a week, and he'll do CTC math for arithmetic and algebra on the other days. And I'm using the elementary arithmetic for my 4th grader and my 1st grader. So for history, we are doing the heroic age, which Charlotte Mason recommended for 1st graders. And I've done it with my other boys, and I was debating doing it with my 1st grader this year, and instead just having him read picture books of the same time period we're studying in American history. But overall, I decided, you know what, I have to be reading it to him anyway. And I feel like a good foundation in the first people that came to live in this land. And learning their legends, traditions, their hero tales is really important. So I am reading Native American Stories by Joseph Bruchac. Love this book. I love the stories. My 9-year-old, he loved the stories, and my oldest would come in and listen when we were reading it a couple years ago. So I'm using that again for my 1st grader, and I'm using it alongside the Book of Indians by Holling C. Holling. This is a wonderful book. Holling C. Holling and his wife lived with all the different tribes that he talks about in his books. And they learned from them. They learned how people used to build houses based on the materials they had and the geography. He talks about how the different tribes adapted to the geography and climate in different parts of the US. And you can tell he did a lot of research. So I can't recommend this enough for an accurate information on the different regions of the US and the tribes that live there. But what's fun is he tells it in a very living way, and he follows a boy and a girl from each tribe. Now this would be historical fiction as far as the children that are in the stories aren't real, but all the information about them and their lives are real, if that makes sense. So I really like this book for you could even use it for longer than 1st grade, but we're planning on using it for this whole year. And for geography, for my 1st grader, we're doing something a little different. We are doing reading A Child's Introduction to the World by Heather Alexander. And I'm doing this in place of Elementary Geography by Charlotte Mason. Now, I'm going to pull some things from that book, but I just really like how this book's illustrated. She has some fun experiments to illustrate how these geographical concepts work, and I really like it. So I'm combining it with some lessons from elementary geography, but this one will kind of be the main spine for geography. And the other thing that I'm really excited about this year that I'm doing differently is I'm not planning out our foreign language and trying to execute it. I speak some Spanish, like very little. And my husband spoke it on a mission that he served for our church. So he knows Spanish fluently, but he has not been very reliable in getting him to teach our boys Spanish. So I was trying to put stuff together based on what Charlotte Mason recommended, and I'm just done. It's too hard. My boys are taking classes through Charlotte Mason Simple Languages. They also have whole programs, so you could do a whole year of Spanish. They have folk songs, then they have scriptures or poetry, and they have stories and games. They have all kinds of things in this curriculum that you can print and use. So if the classes are full, or you just know the language but you just need some structure, they have all of those things for you. So far, my boys have really enjoyed the Zoom classes that are twice a week, and it's fun because there's games, they do a singing, and then the teacher reads them a book. And from what I've seen, the teacher speaks mostly in Spanish. So the children are being exposed to it twice a week for a half hour, and then in the meantime, we can read the little book. So this comes with books that they have that you print out and have ready to read on your own, but then the teacher reads them in the lessons as well. So that is a fun resource that is taking a lot off my mind, not trying to create my own foreign language curriculum each year. So that in a nutshell is what we are doing this year, what we're doing differently than last year, and I will have to give you an update at the end of the year to tell you how that went. And I would love to hear what you are going to be doing differently this year or what you're excited to do. So leave a comment in this comment section below letting me know what you're excited about for this upcoming school year.